Warning: the following video contains explicit language which may be offensive to some viewers or inappropriate for children. The content within this video is intended for mature audiences only.
It's Jeff. Glad to see everybody. Hope you're having a good Sunday, and hope it's warmer where you are than it is here. It's very cold in Maine today, I mean we had a little bit of sun, but it didn't seem to really matter much temperature-wise, but at least we had some sunlight, which is always good to see, you know, during the winter when it's always so dreary and, you know, gray outside. So, well, there's been quite a, you know, quite a lot of reaction to what Trump had done with Venezuela here yesterday or the day before. And, you know, there's a lot of talk, a lot of people pissed, a lot of people in support of what Trump did. And it's no less the same in Venezuela itself. There's a lot of people there who are upset and scared. They don't know what the United States has planned for them down there. Some people are happy that Maduro was gone. So you have a mixed batch of reaction there. The UN obviously has a mixed batch. You know, they pretty much condemn what Trump did, but they're not really going to do anything about it. And here's an article here, that I can read here for you from Daily Dose, and it says Democrats floating impeachment in wake of illegal Trump attack on Venezuela. Democrats erupted in fury in the wake of Trump's illegal attack on Venezuela, with Representative Delia Ramirez calling for his impeachment and Representative Jared Huff calling for his removal via the 25th Amendment. Yeah, so, but I wouldn't worry, because the Democrats have been threatening impeachment here since last year, and they've never done a fucking thing to push that forward, so there won't be any impeachment. They'll just bitch and complain. People are expecting that the UN is going to do something about it. Again, I wouldn't worry about it. I don't think the UN's got the balls to do anything about it, because they've got nothing. The United States has been their muscle for decades, and now that the United States doesn't listen to them anymore, they don't have that. Okay? Now, I ain't saying this because I'm in support of what Trump did. I'm saying this as fact. Look, judging by what's happened last year, okay, and how many things that Congress, the UN, anybody has just been sitting back letting Trump get away with. So all of a sudden now they want to do, you know, no. Well, like I said last year, the only way impeachment is going to work with Trump is if the Republicans start the impeachment process, not the Democrats. Because if the Democrats start it, it's just going to look like, oh, sour grapes, and, you know, no one's going to take it serious. But if his own party wants to push impeachment, then people will wake up, okay, saying, okay, well, now they're serious, because the Republicans are all lining up against them. Even though some of them are, there's not enough of them to really push this through, and I don't think the motivation is there yet for Republicans to think about impeaching Trump. So, no, it won't work if the Democrats are the ones that start this process. And like I said, it's just, it's sad. But really, the only thing we can look forward to is the midterms, if that is still available to us when the time comes, considering what Trump is, you know, capable of doing to topple that fucking avenue. So, Okay, so Trump, this other article, Trump has started carving up the world. Now it's Putin and Xi's turn. This is from the New Republic. The U.S. invasion of Venezuela late last Friday shocked the world for many reasons. It represents another fundamental departure from the post-World War II order supported by the United States for the last 50 years. It was also an unprovoked naked act of aggression based on the flimsiest of pretexts. Congress was not consulted, and the executive branch has far exceeded the 60 days allowed by the 1973 War Powers Act to get congressional approval for ongoing military action. Far worse than these shattered norms are the horrifying possibilities this action raises. President Trump and the GOP have laid bare their desires for hegemony, colonialism, and empire, and the dangerous global consequences of America pursuing these cannot be understated. Venezuelan leader Nicolas Maduro was an unpopular, kleptocratic dictator, and this article should not be in any way interpreted as a defense of him, but it is a warning of what this invasion means and what is to come. Perhaps the most blatant of all the recent acts is Trump's own declaration that the U.S. will take control of Venezuela for a while to seize and exploit the oil resources of that country. He will undoubtedly place a right-wing dictator beholden to him in charge of the country, opening the door to yet another avenue for foreign money flowing to him. Similarly, oil companies will compete with one another for access to the seized assets, meaning more money being laundered to Trump, his family, and other supporters in this spoils of war system. This act has also sent a chilling message to the world that the United States is beginning the process of carving up the world into spheres of influence run by dictatorships, namely the U.S., Russia, and China. Russia was Venezuela's benefactor and ally, but has been strangely quiet. Former U.S. Ambassador to Ukraine, Fiona Hill, testified to Congress in 2019 that Russia was signaling very strongly that they wanted to somehow make some very strange swap agreement between Venezuela and Ukraine. In other words, the U.S. could have Venezuela if we let Russia have Ukraine. This strongly suggests that the price for letting the U.S. go after Venezuela without any protest was and will be Ukraine. It also suggests that Taiwan may already be on the table as a bargaining chip with China in order to secure its acquiescence to further U.S. regional hegemony in the Americas. Trump has signaled that the global order of the past 80 years means nothing, and the U.S. is back in the business of colonial empire building as if it was a pre-World War I great power. Canada and Greenland should be extremely alarmed by this. Both of these countries have been put on notice since the beginning of the second Trump administration that he intends to annex them. And this over-the-top act of war against Venezuela confirms that there's nothing stopping him from finding some pretextual casus belli to justify a U.S. Annexation of Greenland. Denmark, Canada, and Greenland are all NATO members, and it appears the U.S. is barreling toward a confrontation with that organization. Leaders of democracies around the world need to understand this for what it likely is. The opening salvos of a broader campaign of modern Lebensraum and Anschluss. History teaches that the best time to say no in concrete terms is early, and not after despotic nations are deciding who gets to keep which parts of countries they invaded. Yeah, I mean, that's what I've kind of been saying about the UN. I mean, you know, the longer they sit on their ass and not do anything about what Trump has done, that's just going to open, you know, make people feel more emboldened to go ahead and copy what Trump just did. So, I don't see how MAGA can sit calmly about this and think this is not going to blow up in their face, because it clearly is, and every person who's spoken out against this raid here that in Venezuela has it clear in mind what this could mean, you know, in the near future. And yes, This is a reason, another example of why other countries like Japan, Germany, England are arming themselves to the teeth, because they see what's happening here. They saw this last year when they saw Trump and Zelensky having it out in the goddamn, in front of the world in the White House. Okay, they knew right then this guy doesn't respect anybody. Okay, he's a class act asshole, and he won't listen to reason. He wants everything his way, and if he doesn't get it, he's going to drive it down your throat whether you like it or not. Okay, and so this is, they knew this, and that's when they started last year. These countries building up their weapons, their arsenal. Everybody's saying, "Oh, Japan can't do that." Well, Japan said in their constitution they wouldn't, but they can change that. Okay, there was no agreement made with anybody that they weren't going to ever have a military. And why should they choke on their own fucking agreement if they see there's a potential threat over the horizon? Okay, the United States and Japan, I mean, they can't depend on us maintaining being allies with this dingbat we got in the White House now. He'll wake up one day with a hair across his ass and he'll figure, oh, Japan needs to go. And then the next day we're launching bombs over there. Okay, so it's like I said, we don't know what this, how serious this is. I mean, especially MAGA. They seem to be perfectly happy with what he did. But I'm telling you right now, that's that's false security. Okay, you think he's done the right thing, but everybody's saying this is not a good thing, because in light of how the rest of the world sees it, this is going to raise global tensions here, and not with the United States, but against it. And that's the bad part about what Trump did yesterday. Now, I'm not supporting Maduro there or whatever, okay? Forget that. The guy, obviously, it's like Saddam Hussein, same fucking thing. But there's a process, okay? If you want someone removed from power, or, what I'm saying? There's a process, one that all countries had agreed on long before many of us were born, about how to maintain a civilized society. And by doing so, we all agreed to certain steps to take. Now, they might make things slow, but there's things we could have done differently that we didn't have to do the way Trump did it. Trump just went down there and just blew people out of the fucking water for whatever reason. Okay, all for the profit for corporations to get that oil. Okay, he didn't tell anybody that, oh, by the way, once we get into Venezuela, we're going to have to sink millions and millions of dollars into restoring, the oil system that Venezuela has, because it's been sadly neglected under, different, like Maduro and other people. Okay, they let it go to hell. So yeah, taxpayer dollars are going to be spent big time down there to rebuild that, just so corporations like Exxon and all them can have all kinds of fucking oil and hit us at the pump. Now, you want to talk about wasteful spending, America first. None of that applies here. Okay, none of it. We're being set up to be victimized again by the capitalist system. That's what this is. And the only people that benefit from it are the minority in this country. When I say minority, I mean the billionaires, okay? Because there's damn few of them and a whole lot more of us out there. So the minorities out there are ones that stand to gain the most out of what Trump did. Okay, so naturally they're going to say, oh, congratulations, and they're all waiting to see what they're going to do. But like an article I had read yesterday, this is these companies are trying to assess exactly what Trump has given them through this invasion here, or whatever you want to call it. And then some people, and I read comments, and some of the MAGA people are really stupid, saying, well, what's different from what Obama did to what Trump did? And they're talking about Osama bin Laden. Well, let's see. Osama bin Laden was not a leader of a country. He was a leader of a group of terrorists. Okay? That didn't apply here. Okay? What Trump did was kidnap a leader of a country. Whether you agree with him being a leader or not, he was recognized as the leader. So that's a different thing. Okay? That's a different thing. What Obama did was not the same thing that what Trump did. And And of course, Obama was looking for bin Laden for a long time, and Congress approved of it, that, you know, for him to get this guy. So we had people out there, CIA and all them, searching for this motherfucker, okay? And when we found out where he was, we went in there and we got him. All right? What we did in Iraq by unseating Saddam Hussein is similar to what Trump did. And we saw what happened to that country after we did that, okay? Like I said, there was a process that Bush should have followed if he wanted this guy out, but instead they just assembled a military, went in there, you know, gun-ho, and took this guy out. And then that whole region, you know, devolved into chaos. I mean, Jesus, I mean, the people that we left over, the Americans we left over there, Christ, they stepping on landmines, you know, and the terrorist activity went through the roof over there. So again, we should have learned from that this is not the way you deal with other world leaders, okay? You don't go in there and just steal them, all right, and fly them out of there overnight, okay, and then bomb the hell out of certain things in the meantime as a distraction. No, that's not the way you do it, okay? And Trump walked right into that again, okay, because of the kind of person that he is, the kind of character that he is. Okay. All right, here's an interesting little item here. The narco-terrorist elite Maureen Kasich from the American Prospect. Quote, "If you're a little too online, you likely know that Marco Rubio, as a teenager, made extra cash working for his late brother-in-law, Orlando Sicilia. The business imported and sold exotic animals only as a front for moving nearly 500,000 pounds of cocaine and marijuana. I dealt to support my animal habit," Tabro humbly told the Netflix documentarians about the drug ring that imported and distributed $79 million worth of drugs between 1976 and 1987. It was Rubio's job, according to Manuel Roig Franzia's 2012 biography of the then senator, to build the cages. Rubio has sworn he knew nothing about the drugs. He was only 16. Today, Marco Rubio is the Trump administration's most formidable liar. Rubio's approval ratings are the highest in the Republican Party, even as he is the architect of what is arguably Trump's single most cynical policy, the scheme to appoint drug cartel bosses and their cronies atop the governments of every Latin American country in the name of fighting drug cartels. In September, Rubio hailed Ecuadorian President Daniel Noboa, who leads a country whose homicide rate has risen 8-fold since 2016, as an incredibly willing partner who has done more just in the last couple of years to take the fight to these narco-terrorists and these threats to the security and stability of Ecuador than any previous administration. Just 5 months earlier, a damning investigation revealed that Noboa's family fruit business had trafficked in 700 kilos of cocaine to Europe in banana crates between 2020 and 2022. Rubio has tirelessly promoted the cause of convicted, alias just pardoned, drug trafficker Juan Orlando Hernandez. In 2018, Rubio personally and publicly commended Hernandez, then president of Honduras, for combating drug traffickers and supporting Israel, just 7 months before his brother was indicted for trafficking 158 tons of cocaine in containers stamped TH for Tony Hernandez. Rubio has raved about the crime-fighting efforts of Salvadoran and Argentine junior strongmen Nayib Bukele and Javier Milei, in spite of the former's documented alliance with MS-13 and the various Miami cocaine trafficking scandals that enveloped his libertarian political party last fall, as well as both leaders' slavish devotion to the drug cartels' single favorite mode of money laundering. Rubio has been one of the Beltway's biggest backers of newly elected Chilean President Jose Antonio Cast, the son of a literal Nazi war criminal who has spent his entire political career lionizing, whitewashing, and promising a restoration of the brutal regime of Augusto Pinochet, who personally ordered the Chilean army to build a cocaine laboratory, consolidated the narcotics trade inside his terrifying secret police, and then allegedly disappeared key conspirators like his secret police chemist, Eugenio Barrios, as historian Greg Grandin pointed out in a recent podcast appearance, whereas in many realms the scale and breadth of the Trump administration plunge into mafia rule is truly unprecedented. In Latin America, it is more of a continuation of policy that dates back at least a century. Behind every single horror that Donald Trump represents exists a long train of U.S. presidents that have first put in the policies that make what Trump does today possible. Few Americans learn this lesson the hard way at so tender an age as Marco Rubio. So, yeah, I thought this was an interesting little item here about Marco Rubio. And the fact that, look, it kind of goes back to the idea that Trump was trying to pull the wool over our eyes by saying, oh, we need to get rid of Maduro because of drugs and stuff like that. And, how long have we been fighting the drug problem in this country? Anyone got an idea? Okay. It goes back decades. It goes back decades. And the problem with this is that too many elite in this country are involved in it. Okay? And too many people are making tons of money from it. And because you think that one place in the world is what's causing this trouble, it's so naive. Because, you see here what I just read of these other countries named here involved in selling drugs in this country. Okay, so what's Trump going to do? Is he going to raid every goddamn country in South America or something? Come on. That's not how you fight this stuff. And the fact is, we still have a lot of fight here at home in order to get people off this shit. Okay? And educate them on, what's the danger of getting hooked into this stuff. I just feel like, it's a waste of military assets and money, taxpayer money, to go and invade a country because of drugs, okay? When all along it was about oil, and that's what it is. And even though that doesn't seem to matter to MAGA, it matters to the rest of the 70% of this country who doesn't approve of our government doing acts without congressional approval and spending taxpayer dollars when, our budget is so tight we can't afford to spend, and yet we're spending like you wouldn't believe here, okay? Trump hasn't done a goddamn thing to drain the swamp. He brought the swamp to D.C. Him and all the fucking executives at these oil companies. I mean, he's literally is the swamp that he campaigned that he was going to get rid of. And it's no surprise that, people are really, ditching him and ditching the MAGA movement, finally waking up to the fact that, yes, MAGA was nothing more than a cult, and Trump is a cult leader. He's also a global terrorist, okay, by what he did in Venezuela. And this country has laws against that sort of thing, and until, our government actually stands on its own feet and stands up to this shit, America's dead. Okay? We don't have an America anymore. As long as we got, people with no spine willing to stand up to Trump and what he's done here, okay? So that's just, my take on that. Okay, here's this op-ed piece from Jacobin. The U.S. is a weakened and dangerous empire, written by Ben Burgess. In the depths of a winter night, U.S. airborne forces scream over Caribbean waters. Jets rain fire on key infrastructure while attack helicopters deliver raiding parties of special operatives to targets on the ground. Amid the spectacle of shock and awe, a president is kidnapped and indicted on drug trafficking charges. It's a key test case for how an ambitious Republican administration intends to handle an era of seismic change. This was December the 20th, 1989. The operation in question was the ouster of strongman Panamanian leader and erstwhile CIA asset Manuel Noriega. But there's an unmistakable parallel with Donald Trump's kidnapping of Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro and his wife. It illustrates everything that has changed and stayed the same. In the 30 years separating these two acts of aggression, the first occurred at the start of a new age of American hyperpower. The second is a symptom of that age's chaotic and violent decline. George H.W. Bush's deposition of Noriega signaled a new post-Cold War age of American world-making. Within a few years, the United States let rip in the Persian Gulf. Like Noriega, Iraq's Saddam Hussein would quickly learn that serving U.S. interests is no guarantee of protection. Alongside new wars on 3 continents, the collapse of the Soviet Union surely watered down the appeal of anti-communism as a rationale for constant warfare. But the war on drugs had already been built up as a replacement justification for forever wars, devouring lives and resources on a global scale. Soviet retreat brought Latin America little peace from U.S. militarism. If anything, the reverse was true, with Washington playing a key role in feeding Colombia's civil war. The region also provided a unique study in leftist resurgence during a period of neoliberal dominance. Venezuela's Barrios delivered Hugo Chavez to power in 1998, and a new indigenous-led alliance brought Evo Morales and the movement toward socialism to power in Bolivia in 2005, in the continent's so-called pink tide. That project saw a revival at the start of the 2020s, but has faced severe setbacks. The collapse of MAS rule in Bolivia, economic and political fragility in Venezuela, producing one of the world's largest displacement crises, and the victories of staunch Trump backers such as Jose Antonio Cas in Chile, Nayib Bukele in El Salvador, and Javier Milei in Argentina. U.S. support is just one variable in these complex processes, but a significant one. In the waning days of Joe Biden's administration, it became clear that simultaneous arming of Ukraine and Israel was stretching U.S. military-industrial capacity to its limit, despite absurdly bloated military budgets. The rapid redeployment of the Gerald R. Ford, the world's largest aircraft carrier, from the Middle East to the Caribbean last autumn underscores this impression of a failing empire running from place to place, putting out, or in reality, starting fires. So too does the United States' willingness to tear up its traditional social military contract with Europe, where it contributed disproportionately in return for European acceptance of its strategic priorities and dependence on its materiel. A common critique of the attack on Venezuela is that the United States has given up on any pretense at maintaining the liberal world order. This is true, but misses the point. That order, where the United States promises steadfast support for allies, economic aid when needed, and the maintenance of global financial and political architecture in exchange for consent for its preeminence, is no longer structurally capable of existing. Empires do not go gently into the good night. The European imperial age was cut decisively short by World War II era destruction. Even then, its exit was decades long, bloody, and in many places remains unresolved. It's de rigueur among leftists to talk about the decline and fall of the U.S. empire, but that deadline is relative to others and descends from an age of historically unprecedented hyperpower. Even U.S. strategic defeats, such as Vietnam and Afghanistan, shattered the countries they took place in. Meanwhile, the United States does not exist in a vacuum. Clearly, Trump faces new internal constraints, and many of his opponents fall in line on foreign affairs. For all of Brussels' carping, the EU cannot and will not exert a moderating influence. Among everyone else, this will inevitably strengthen the incentive for a cynical Hobbesian view of international relations, where constant imitative displays of aggression and unpredictability are necessary for survival. Through the fires in Caracas, myriad bleak futures can be glimpsed. Amid such bleakness, it's worth mentioning something else that has happened in the United States in the last few days. New Democratic Socialist local leaders like Zoran Mamdani and Katie Wilson taking office based on stridently internationalist campaigns. In the United States and beyond, the forces of rampant militarism have attempted to insist that their destructive, nihilistic approach to the world is the only thing that can protect people at home in dangerous times. It will take locally rooted leadership with a firm grasp of the national and international dimensions to prove that the opposite is true. They provide better ways of navigating the world's rapid and traumatic convulsions and to imagine a different world order. Well, that's what everyone's afraid of. A different world order might not be such an ordered world. Okay, if all these countries are seeing anything about what happened this weekend here in Venezuela, what they're seeing is a rising threat to what was, the power to, keep order in the world. Now that power has been twisted, and now it's become the enemy or the growing threat in this world. And that's why all these other countries are arming themselves up, because they're losing their trust in the United States. And it's not hard to understand why they feel that way, especially considering that, with things going on between Ukraine and Russia seemingly exerting its fat all over the planet, okay, trying to grab land, whatever the hell he wants, and not much pushback from the United States, okay, which, in the past, they would have looked to us to do something about. Well, when Biden was in office and we did try, okay, everybody was like, no, stay the hell out of it, okay, forgetting the fact that we had an obligation to protect, every sovereign country that's, trying to become a democracy, that we were supposed to help defend these democracies. Now, yes, I realize Ukraine wasn't part of the UN at that time, and I don't know if it ever will be, but it was still worth, trying to help them out, okay? And I still say that Russia never would have escalated things to a World War III, because Putin, like Trump, has an ego. He doesn't want to be the last person, of a country that brought it to its ruin. That's not what Putin's about. He's trying to regain old glory from the Cold War era, and he can't do that if his country is devastated. But it's just, like I said, it's one of those things that a sign that the world order, the way things were, the way it had been done since World War II, I mean, yeah, it's changed, but it's not changed for the better. It's actually changed for the worse, because I don't trust the current leadership in our country to know how to approach this new world order here, we want to call it. I don't see how he would understand how to do that and do it successfully, because he's not a person that's ever ran a whole country before. He's winging this as he goes with the worst fucking people around him to give him advice. So nothing but failure is going to come out of this fucking White House. So I don't see how anybody can sit here and feel comfortable about what Trump did with Venezuela and sleep soundly at night, because I know the blowback of this is going to last for a long time. And, we could see a rise in more terrorist activity in this country from other nations responding to what happened there. I mean, it's possible. It may take time, but 9/11 was a direct retaliation for things we had done, and it took years for them to get that going, but they got it. They had because it wasn't easy to set that whole mess up, to have planes hijacked and slamming into targets. It took years to plan that out. So I wouldn't be surprised, if something else happened and it's directly tied to our actions in Gaza, our actions in Venezuela, and, who knows where else, okay, Middle East, Iran, I don't see a positive light here in any of this. Trump's actually made things worse by doing this, because he set a new precedent here. All right, let's go to a commercial break. We'll be back.
I'm Alex Curtis. I'm a lobsterman in Maine, and this is me.
I'm Roxy Sugar, and this is me.
I'm Eric Hopkins. I'm an artist, and this is me.
This is me.
Me.
This is me.
This is me.
At the end of the journey, the main thing is you. Original.
I thought I'd just get head spins, not nicotine poisoning.
Oh my god, his vape taped.
I wanted to be social. I didn't want the addiction that took over.
I thought it was just a bit of fun, but not being able to breathe because of lung damage is definitely not fun.
It's proven that vapes cause real harm. Every vape is a hit to your health. For more proof, search vaping harms.
There were Republicans that I never questioned that their sincerity or their belief in the American system. And I think with the administration the way it's been, I think I'm not sure the man has took his oath seriously to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States. From my perspective, is that there is fear and outrage and xenophobia has been commoditized. It's because it's turned into the bigger trademark for how America puts itself out in the world. I think the United States of America is the promised land, the closest the world has ever gotten to a true promised land. This election is about whether or not we, the people of the United States, are going to promote the general welfare and provide for the common defense. We need a brand of guidance, and we need a brand of common sense, and we need a brand of selflessness that has not been on display.
My principles are like my eyeliner, reapplied and rebranded every news cycle.
My Hot Mess Express lips were made for lying, and that's just what they'll do.
When I walk into a room, fake patriots salute me. Real ones think, God help us.
My advice? Shoot first and fact check later, especially if it's wagging its tail.
A vaccine in the arm keeps me up at night, but a worm in the brain tucks me in.
I genuinely never know where I'm looking, which makes hiding the Epstein files a breeze.
Enigmas never age, and every day is a wonderful secret, except the Epstein list. I'm on every damn page.
Some people have a deep, abiding respect for the natural beauty that was once this country. And some people don't. People start pollution. People can stop it. Write for Pollution Booklet, Box 1771, Radio City Station, New York.
Be a part of the entertainment value of a lifetime.
I loved it.
It was the best performance I've seen in a lifetime.
I loved the show. I liked it very much. He's a very entertaining man. It's well worth the money.
Now appearing in Charlottetown, coming to Halifax November 6th to the 18th, and St. John November 20th through the 26th.
Okay, welcome back, everybody. All right, I have this article from MotherJones.com, written by Monica Burrellin. Okay, it's entitled "The End of CBS News." You may have heard of the biggest story on CBS News 60 Minutes this year. It was a report that the show never aired. The network's editor-in-chief, Barry Weiss, pulled the segment about what happened to migrants deported to El Salvador's Seacot prison less than 48 hours before it was supposed to air. Now, editors-in-chief often annoyingly ask for changes in stories. I was one, and I did it. But no editor in her right mind will do is yank a piece at the last minute after it has been reported, vetted, fact-checked, lawyered, greenlit for publication, and promoted for several days. For if you do that, the issue will no longer be the reporting. The issue will be your management. You will also, because of the Streisand effect, draw much more attention to the story than it otherwise would have gotten. The yanked 60-minute segment quickly became available in a million places on the internet, including a transcript that he has here on this article I'm reading here. There are only two ways for people to read a decision like this. One, the editor believes her team is so incompetent they were about to air a story that would do irreparable harm. Or two, the editor is willing to throw her team under the bus to curry favor with the powers that be. In CBS News' case, we might have a rare instance where both are true. The editor, who has been hired to curry favor with the powers that be, also truly believes that her team is incompetent. 5 days into the debacle, Weiss wrote a memo to staff to explain why she had yanked the story. It lectures her colleagues about basic journalistic fairness in order to gain viewers' trust. She says journalists need to, quote-unquote, work hard. Quote, sometimes that means doing more legwork. Sometimes it means holding a piece about an important subject to make sure it is comprehensive and fair, unquote. How to ensure that a story is comprehensive and fair? In another memo, Weiss elaborated that the Seacot story didn't try hard enough to show the quote-unquote genuine debate about the legality of the deportations. Producers had already requested comment from the Department of Homeland Security, the State Department, and the White House to no avail. But Weiss wrote they needed to ask again. Quote, I tracked down cell numbers for border czar Tom Homan and Stephen Miller and sent those along, unquote. Weiss is right, of course, that journalists should work hard to capture, quote, genuine debate, unquote. But the Seacot segment was not about the legal issues around deporting people to the prison. It was about what happened to them once they got there. Food deprivation, stress positions, isolation, torture. Was Weiss saying that there is a, quote, genuine debate, unquote, about whether these things happened? How would Stephen Miller's view help us assess that? If it's hard to follow the journalistic logic here, It makes sense to look at another kind, the brutal logic of corporate media in Trump's America. And the best way to understand that is a quick timeline. In October 31, 2024, 5 days before the election, Donald Trump files a $10 billion lawsuit against CBS over its routine editing of an interview with Kamala Harris. January 22nd, 2025. 2 days after Trump takes office, the Federal Communications Commission, which has the power to approve or deny the sale of CBS's parent company Paramount to billionaire father and son team Larry and David Ellison, opens its own investigation of the Harris interview. April 21, 2025. The longtime head of 60 Minutes resigns, saying he has, quote, lost independence, unquote, from corporate. July 2nd, 2025. Paramount settles Trump's lawsuit with a $16 million payment. July 11, 2025. News leaks that David Ellison has been talking to Weiss about acquiring her startup, the Free Press, and giving her a leadership role at CBS if he buys Paramount. July 24, 2025, FCC approves Paramount sale to Ellison. October 6, 2025, Weiss installed as CBS News Editor-in-Chief. October 16, 2025, Claudia Milne, CBS's head of standards and practices, the executive whose job it is to make sure the newsroom abides by its legal and ethical rules, resigns. December the 8th, 2025. David Ellison launches a hostile bid to acquire Warner Brothers Discovery, which also owns CNN. The sale would require approval from the FCC. Ellison reportedly has told the Trump administration that he would make sweeping changes at CNN if the sale goes through. December the 16th, 2025, Trump lashes out at Ellison and CBS, saying they have, quote, treated me far worse since the so-called takeover than they have ever treated me before, unquote. He specifically calls out 60 Minutes. December the 18th, 2025, Weiss screens the 60 Minutes segment about CCOT and, according to producers, gives some comments which are integrated into the script. Newsroom leadership greenlights the segment for broadcast. December the 19th, 2025, around midnight, Weiss lets the producers know that she has more concerns. Running the story as is, she says, would be, quote, doing our viewers a disservice, unquote. December the 21st, 2025, 60 Minutes airs without the CCOT segment. Bottom line, Weiss was plucked from running a small conservative-leaning newsroom and installed atop CBS when the network's owner, David Ellison, was currying favor with the Trump administration. Then, right as Ellison needed Trump regulatory approval to merge, she yanked a story that the administration was bound to have complaints about. Maybe someday a revised CCOT piece will air, probably a smaller audience than the millions who have watched the leaked version online. Perhaps with some on-camera comment from Stephen Miller about how, quote-unquote, third world immigrants deserve what they get. But whatever we learn from the story at that point won't tell us as much as what we've already learned. In authoritarian regimes, you sometimes find independent reporting and public expression of dissent. Even in the old Soviet Union, they let some of that slide. But, quote, letting it slide, unquote, is the point. You are meant to know that what you are allowed to see has been approved by the people in charge. So too now with CBS News. There are still great journalists working there and great stories being published, but now we know that these stories will only be seen when the bosses allow it. And not all those bosses are working at CBS News. So yeah, it's I realize that happened last month, but it's still unsettling, that CBS would do something like that. But it also harkens back to that goddamn story about big tobacco, when they made a movie out of Jeffrey Wygant and all that shit that happened, and how they didn't want to rock the boat because of the sale that CBS was going through with Westinghouse and all that shit, and how corporations were basically dictating what could be aired about big tobacco in general. And it's like, here we, once you cave in at that point, it gets easier to do it again. And that's kind of like what this is. It's like, well, we did it before with big tobacco, and now we're doing it again for Trump, So I think, if you've seen that movie, and I can't remember the name of it right off bat, but if you've seen the movie at the end, where is it? I'm trying to think of his name here. I can't think of it now, but you said they say we were broken here at the end of the movie, and that's true. They were. The system put a crack in CBS News, and now that crack's gotten wider now since then. And so, like I said, it's just, we can't really trust, media that we used to trust anymore, and that we're getting the facts. And like they said, what you do see is okay with the people at the top, but if it's not okay, you're not going to see the story. And you probably won't even know that it even existed unless you're a person that's on the internet all the time and looking up news and stuff like that, like I do. You're not really going to know about it. We have to broaden our sources of information than the big three. That's been, the pinnacle of our news core in America. We're going to have to get, look outside that box if we really want to know what's going on. And really the best way now, and because we have the internet, is to go online and find the news there. That's really the best way, because what you're getting on there is filtered through the corporation, filtered through whatever is looking this stuff over. It's like reading redacted material. Okay, all the important stuff is being hidden from you. Why would you waste your time reading stuff like that if you're not going to see the facts? Okay, why would you bother watching CBS, NBC, ABC, Fox News, all that if they're going to leave out all the important shit? Okay, it doesn't make any sense. So, like I said, we have to think differently now. This is the world we live in, and we have to depend on these independent reporters to give us the information that we need in order to understand what's happening. And there's a lot of them out there, a lot of people out there that do that stuff. And just because they're small time and they look like they're doing this from their home, doesn't mean that these people are not privy to the fucking facts. It doesn't mean that they're not angling to get information that otherwise would not be given to you by the big mega giants here of media. Okay, you're not. You know what I'm saying? Does it really matter where it comes from? I mean, if if you trust the source, I mean, come on. I think at this point, nobody can really trust the 60 Minutes news anymore, or any of these outlets, because they've all been broken, as to quote from that movie, to coin a phrase. They've all been broken by corporate America and the government. Okay, so you're only going to get, what can I say, out of a story that would be 10 pages long, you're going to get a paragraph delivered to you through these outfits, okay? Aren't you curious about what the other 9 pages are saying? I know I would be. And the idea that, oh, well, we're not going to air this because it's not fair. Well, who decides that? Okay, if you're a journalist, for Christ's sake, then you're being fair by just delivering the facts. But if you're not going to deliver the facts, why is that fair and not the other way around? You see what I'm saying? I mean, that's basically what Weiss here is trying to say, is that, oh, well, if we can't slant the news our way, then it's not fair. No, that's not the reason. If they can't slant the news their way, they're afraid that they're going to be sued by Trump or somebody, okay? So they don't want to tell you the fucking truth. It's protect my ass first before telling the public what they're supposed to know. So that's what you get. Okay, lastly here, this story from the BBC. This was written a couple days ago from Laura Kress, titled, "Woman Felt Dehumanized After Musk's Grok AI Used to Digitally Remove Her Clothes." A woman has told the BBC she felt dehumanized and reduced into a sexual stereotype after Elon Musk's AI Grok was used to digitally remove her clothing. The BBC has seen several examples on the social media platform X of people asking the chatbot to undress women to make them appear in bikinis without their consent, as well as putting them in sexual situations. XAI, the company behind Grok, what a name, did not respond to a request for comment other than with an automatically generated reply stating legacy media lies. Okay, that sounds like AI response to the fucking... Samantha Smith shared a post on X about her image being altered, which was met with comments from those who had experienced the same before others asked Grok to generate more of her. Quote, "Women are not consenting to this," unquote, she said. Quote, "While it wasn't me that was in states of undress, it looked like me and it felt like me and it felt as violating as if someone had actually posted a nude or a bikini picture of me," unquote. A Home Office spokesperson said it was legislating to ban notification tools, and under a new criminal offense, anyone who supplied such tech would, quote, "face a prison sentence and substantial fines," unquote. The regulator, Ofcom, said tech firms must, quote, "assess the risk," unquote, of people in the UK viewing illegal content on their platforms, but did not confirm whether it was currently investigating X or Grok in relation to AI images. Grok is a free AI assistant with some paid-for premium features which responds to X users' prompts when they tag it in a post. It is often used to give reaction or more context to other posters' remarks, but people on X are also able to edit and upload image through its AI image editing feature. It has been criticized for allowing users to generate photos and videos with nudity and sexualized content, and it was previously accused of making a sexually explicit clip of Taylor Swift. Who do you think wanted that? Who hates Taylor Swift? Okay. Claire McGlynn, a law professor at Durham University, said X or Grok, quote, "could prevent these forms of abuse if they wanted to," unquote, adding they, quote, "appear to enjoy impunity," unquote. Quote, "The platform has been allowing the creation and distribution of these images for months without taking any action, and we have yet to see any challenge by regulators," unquote, she said. XAI's own acceptable use policy prohibits, quote, "depicting likeness of persons in a pornographic manner," unquote. In a statement to the BBC, Ofcom said it was illegal to, quote, "create or share non-consensual intimate images or child sexual abuse material," unquote, and confirmed this included sexual deepfakes created with AI. It said platforms such as X were required to take, quote, "appropriate steps," unquote, to, quote, "reduce the risk," unquote, of UK users encountering illegal content on their platforms and take it down quickly when they become aware of it. We've been telling companies to do that shit for years, ever since the fucking internet got started. And they never do anything about it. Why? Because it generates revenue. Okay? And this AI thing, which some people are happy it's around and other people are saying it sucks, okay, they're using that to feed people's desire just to, smear somebody. All right? And this thing with Taylor Swift, obviously that was Donald Trump, getting back at her for what she said about him. Because this is Elon Musk's fucking outfit here. And when you got a guy who's, like almost a trillionaire, I guess, and he creates, or he has a company that does stuff like this, okay, doesn't that add another layer of, creepiness to Musk in general? I mean, come on. I mean, this is, really, the more we learn about this guy and his doings and stuff and what he allows, I mean, the creepier he gets. I mean, and I guess it's easy to see how him and Trump could have got, together for a while anyway, before one of them tried to devour the other. But, it's just, it's sad that, that AI being used this way is going to lead to another internet era of more problems. Okay, I know a lot of people would say, you know, you're just you know, over exaggerating, you know, and I say no, because would I have been exaggerating the day the internet started, that someday down the road, you know, with this open communication stuff online, that people could be victimized through it, just like they could be, you know, through the telephone, or, you know, or video cameras and stuff like that. I mean, we always create new things in this world, you know, with good reasons or good, you know, intentions, and later they're twisted into these fucking problems that we never would have imagined people would be crazy enough to do with it. You know, I mean, it's just. But I think, you know, in the case of the internet, we should have expected it, because we had plenty of years before that with technological, you know, breakthroughs to see how things were being used in our society. And with the introduction of the internet, I mean, I guess it was, the handwriting was on the wall that, oh, perverts out there are going to find some way to make money off of this thing, you know, disseminating porn. And they have. And now we're trying to put the shit back in the box, but it's really not going to work. I mean, you know, so yeah, they're sitting here telling you guys need to tighten up your regulations. You need to do this, yada yada yada. And I say, well, okay, fine, but are you actually going to enforce that? Are you going to fine these companies big bucks whenever somebody turns their computer on and sees a picture of them online naked? Are you going to do anything about that? Or are you just going to, you know, give them another tongue lashing? Okay, what are you going to do? And this kind of goes to why Australia had put an age limit now on their internet. You know, if you're under, what was it, 16 or something like that, you're not allowed to use the internet or something like that. You know, they put a ban on that for kids that are under 16, I think. This is the kind of problem that prompted that to be made into a law in that country. The rest of the world is, you know, sitting back watching how this plays out. But this should be a warning shot across the bow of all these companies out here. Look, I mean, we could really fuck up your revenue here if we put a ban on certain people using your system. You know, so if you don't smarten the hell up and start controlling your goddamn companies here, or your internet, whatever the fuck they call that, your websites, if you don't start controlling these goddamn websites, okay, we're going to enact legislation in this country that's going to say, okay, people under this yada yada, this age or whatever, this demographic, they're not going to be allowed to use it. They're not going to be allowed to log into it anymore. Okay? And then you'll be bitching, oh, government overreach, government. It's like, no, you were warned for decades about you guys not doing your part to clean up the internet. And now the roosters, you know, come home to roost. So, you know, this is, you know, what can I say? It's a long time coming. And that's why I think that there's a lot of people paying close attention to how this works in Australia with this ban. And they're going to really study the end result here as it plays out to see if it's doing any good. I know the parents in that country of kids that they have that are under 16 are happy that this has come out. Some are saying, well, you know, they can't use the internet to do their homework or something like that. It's like, well, there's places in school that you can get information, you know, if the school allows it, and their access is only to certain things and that's it, I'm sure that would be allowed. But as far as being at home, and if you're not watching your kid and you don't have safeguards put in the thing, and you let these kids roam around on there, you know, this is what happens. You know? Besides, look, my whole generation went to school. Okay, we didn't have the internet. We had a library. Okay? And that's the way we did our homework and stuff like that. Now, giving no access to kids under 16, the use of the internet, is not going to be the end of the world for education. they can still do things the way we did it. Okay? And that argument to me doesn't hold water, because the people making that argument were themselves had gone to school before there was an internet. Okay? My generation ain't that old that we aren't still out there running things, okay? So we remember how it was, and, you know, we did it. But, you know, people are people, you know, it's just, oh, I gotta have my toys, I gotta have my fucking internet, you know, and I gotta have my porn. I mean, let's face it, you know, I'm not gonna mince words here, but that's the way it is, okay? And, the kids are being exposed to a lot of this stuff way before their time, okay? Polluting their minds with stuff that they can't understand, and they're too afraid to talk about. And if parents aren't going to talk about things like that with their kids, then your kids are going to get warped mentally from it. So, I mean, that's how it goes. All right, so anyway, that's it for today, and I hope everybody has a great work week here coming up. So, subscribe, comment, share, and keep your ears open out there for any health issues, and you know, treat each other kindly out there, and be helpful to people in need. And I'll talk to you guys later. See you later.